Thanks everyone for coming out tonight. It's our last event for the year that we'll have talks. So we've got a couple of great ones lined up. So hope you enjoy them. As always, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of the land, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. As always, a bit of housekeeping. Your host tonight, myself and Christian. Christian's up the back there. I'm here. Feel free to reach out if you've got any questions, comments, or concerns throughout the night. A big thank you to our sponsor, Billu. As you know, we're at their venue tonight. Yeah, give them a clap. As most of you know, Billu have been great, especially this year, sort of coming back from the pandemic and getting back into these face-to-face meetups. They've supported us since very early on this year by providing the space and covering our ancillary costs for running the event. So as always, big thank you to them. A reminder that we have a code of conduct. It governs the CocoaHeads meetup here tonight, as well as sort of any after parties or anything like that, as well as our Slack group. And you can read it in full on the website, but it boils down to 3 key points. And they are: be respectful, be inclusive, be aware. If you have any problems or concerns or notice any issues, please feel free to talk to myself or Christian tonight, and we'll follow that up. We have a Slack community, just a reminder. So everyone's welcome. The link's on the screen there. Throughout the month, it's a good place to sort of ask questions or have a chat with fellow developers. There's also opportunities in there to post jobs if you're either looking for work or if you looking to hire somebody. You can do that in that Slack group. It's a pretty good place to hang out throughout the month. I'm seeing a few new faces tonight. Welcome first-time attendees. Hands up. Who's the first time? Welcome. Round of applause. Thanks for coming out. We hope you enjoy it. Now, if you like what you see here tonight, a couple of other groups doing similar things. We've got the Melbourne CocoaHeads group, obviously down in Melbourne. They run on the second Thursday of the month. We're on the third. They also do an excellent live stream, which I quite often tune into, and I highly recommend it if you like what you see here tonight. Canberra CocoaHeads, they're also back up and running. I don't think they have a live stream, but if you're in Canberra when that happens to be running, well worth checking it out. I did want to call out that Ask Apple is running again this week. There's only one day left, and that's tomorrow. But if you have any interest in a consult with an Apple engineer or sort of a group question and answer, definitely worth checking it out and registering for those sessions. There's lots going on across sort of all aspects of iOS development. Got some details up on the slide there, but you can Google that and find out a bit more. And also this morning, sort of Apple developer events announced to meet with App Store experts, which is happening now through until the 8th of December, and you can register online if you've got any questions about the App Store, business models, anything like that. Now, looking ahead to our December meetup, a little bit different, a little bit fun. We're going to be here at the Billu office, third Thursday again, and we're having a Christmas party. We're having a CocoaHeads quiz, so there'll be food, there'll be drinks, and we'll have a bit of fun with an end-of-year quiz. So if you're interested in that, feel free to come along. We'll post the details on Meetup closer to the event. As usual, we're taking January off, and we'll be back in February with some talks. I've already got one lined up, and potentially some more. So looking good for talks next year already. Details for that event will obviously come closer to the event. So on to tonight's schedule. You've had enough of me waffling. This is the housekeeping. We've got some hiring and firing. I believe Billu's hiring, and if anyone else is looking for work or is looking to hire, now's your chance to talk. And then we've got a couple of talks as well. So we've got Universal Links Made Easy by Mazen, and we've got a chat about the weather with Kai and Marlon. They're dialing in from Vancouver, so they'll be remote on Zoom. And then following that, probably about 7:30, we'll just have some chance to socialize and mingle around this room. So feel free to stay on and do that. All right, so if you're hiring or looking for work, now's your chance. We'll start with Christian. I believe Billu is looking for work. Oh, sorry, not looking for work, looking for employees. Sorry.
Well, now you say it. Always looking for work. I don't really need a slide. Well, just shortly, you are at Billu, which is like a consultancy. We're based in Sydney and Melbourne. And we work with some really cool companies to build new products or improve what they have already. Mostly apps or websites, or design work, could be many kinds of things. Specifically right now, we're looking for iOS developers, or at least one. And we've got some job links. I have also shared them in the Slack job channel. So if you feel interested in what's going on here, we want to be a part of it. If you think this looks like a nice office, if you are in any way interested in that kind of thing, look at the links or come talk to me, or We've got Dan Stewart as well. And Daniel, if you want to hear about how it is working here, please reach out. That's all. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Christian. Awesome. So let's get on to Mason's talk. Hand over. Oh, sorry. Before, was anyone else looking for work? Or sorry, I just brushed right over that.
Tick.
Anyone? No? Okay. If anyone is looking for work or looking to hire, feel free to post about it in Slack. That's available. Always. Cool.
Yeah, okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mason. I'm an iOS engineer at WillyX. Today, I'm going to talk about a simple topic. It's called universal links. But I'm going to focus on debugging and deploying it, which can be quite tricky. And we're going to see that. So first, I'm going to start with an inspirational quotation. Okay, universal links. I divided the talk to 4 parts, like the rules. So we define rules for them. And I'm going to talk about that in details. We deploy them, like these rules needs to be deployed to the cloud or to the website. And then we need to debug them because they always fail, they never work. Then the last one, demo. I want to demo that how can we do deployment instantly. Yeah, so rules of universal links is, if you want to think of them, they are like we have an allow list that we put it on the website, on the root directory of the website. And that allow list would check the URLs that are coming, and then we divert them either to the app or send them to the website. So the advantage of having this rules or the allow list being put on that website is to divert traffic from website to the app. So it's quite simple. So I'm just gonna go around the rules that we need to follow so that file can work, because it's quite sensitive. And so the file called Apple App Site Association, that means it associates the app with the site. And then it needs to be hosted at the root directory of your domain, right? And most likely you can find that on most the websites. Either you go just slash, like for example, at woolworth.com.au, and then we go /forward, we go Apple App Site Association with no extension format. If you don't find it there, try .will-known/ and then you can find it there. It needs to be served over HTTPS. So this is very, very important point. And I'll touch on that later. And it needs to use an JSON format. So the file itself has no file extension. So it does not say .json, it has nothing. But the header of that file needs to state that it's a JSON format. Yeah, as I said, there's no extension in that file. And this is a very important point, the last but not least. So the iOS would download that file, which is the allow list, would download it first time you install the app, when you update the app, and then when you delete and reinstall the app. And there is one last point that I'll show it later, is when the cache expires, which is most likely like after 1 week. But I can show the exact number through going through the logs. And the matching rules start from top to bottom. Here, I'm going to just touch the basics. So it's nothing that we need to pay attention to. Like I'm just going to go through, review the basics of that JSON format. So there's /forward. So I just copied that from Apple documentation. So there's nothing tricky about it. Like it's just straightforward. And then I just listed it here that since iOS 13, we have a components path in that JSON file, and that components path help us to exclude path, and it help us to add comments. Like, that JSON file cannot have comments, but we can add comments because it's key value. And then it has a few other things. But this is not very important. This is not the point of the talk. I want to just list it here so we can refresh our memory. So I just mentioned the keys and then the values. Like in the value section, we can have asterisk. That means it's matching 0 or more characters. So these are standard pattern matching, so it's not very important. I'm gonna skip through it. So for us at Woolworth, I was working at introducing universal links to the app. And then our file can be accessed on that domain, and it would look like that. So you can see that we use most of the things that I just mentioned above, that we have components path that says we have a front page, and then we have product details, and we have recipes, and I have exclusion. That if you go here, I said, I want to exclude if the path was shop recipes inspiration, I want to exclude that. What means that if the user go to that path, we don't take them to the app, we keep them on the website. And the reason for that, because we don't have an equivalent page on the app. So I was playing with the rules, and every single time I need to modify a rule, I need to go to the backend developer, ask him that I need to add a new rule, and that process would take a day. So I needed to work on modifying that file instantly, which is the AASA file. So I thought of it would be great to have a mock AASA file, and it would be local, and the engineers can have control over it. They can deploy it, they can test it, and then instantly. So deployment, and I looked around at how can I deploy that file to an HTTPS environment for free instantly. And I looked at Firebase hosting, because at Woolworths we're using Firebase for some other things. So I can access few things with Firebase hosting that it gives me for free a subdomain that is secure, and I can host my AASA file on it. So you can see that these are file subdomains that give them for free, so I can take them. And then all what I need to do now is I have a mock environment, and then I need to specify that link, which is the subdomain that I got from Firebase. And then the reason that I added the association domain there is so to tell the operating system to download the AASA file when the app launch. So it's just like a straightforward process. And then debugging. So when you do it, it's quite tricky to know that if it works or not. There's two ways to debug it and make sure that it works. So branch.io, they have a validator tool. So once you build your file, you put the link on a branch.io website, and they would tell you they would run a few validation. They would tell you the JSON format is valid. They would tell you that it's served over HTTPS and some other things. So this is the first step that you need to do. And once you do it, you know that your format is valid. The next step is there are a few tips from iOS 14 onwards. Apple introduced a CDN, which is Content Delivery Network, which is a layer that sits between your phone and your website. And that is like a cache that refreshes every 2 days. But when you want to test as a developer, you don't want to wait 2 days for a change to happen, right? So there is a way around it. First, you need to enable your device to be developer mode. And then you need to go to your associated domain, add that proper parameter, say the mode is developer. And then you can check your AAS file cache at the CDN network. So the steps above, if you follow, you can bypass the CDN. Yeah, so one of the most important steps is console app. You open the console app that comes with the Mac, And there is SWCD process, which stands for Shared Web Credentials Daemon, I think, process. And it would show you two things: beginning data task and request data. So what happened once you launch the app, you would see the SWCD trying to download your AASA file. So we try to download it, and then here it would tell you if you go down, it would tell you if it's denied or for, like here in my case it was forbidden. But sometimes tell you successful. If it's forbidden, then we need to do further digging deeper into the logs. So there is another step that we can use. It's called system diagnosis. And this is what the forensic would do when they get a hold on a phone, which is by you can do it or you can select it by holding the increment and decrement of the volume with the power button for 3 seconds, and you would get a vibration. Once you get vibration, just let go. Don't keep holding because you would end up calling an emergency. So just stop there. And then once you do that, you wait for 5 minutes, and then the reports will be generated for your device, and we can go and inspect it. So it's called system diagnosis logs. Where we can find it? We can find it under, as you can see in the video, we go under settings, privacy and security. Then analytics and improvements. Then we go inside the analytics data. And then you will see lots of reports being generated there. But I only care about system diagnosis, so I search for it. And then I get the last one, the one that generated today, because I took this video today. And then this file is quite big. It's like 500 megabytes. So I need to send it to my Mac. And then once I send it to my Mac, I can unzip it and then go inside it. I'm only interested about the SWC util, which is the shared web credentials. And then I can search for it. I'll find a file that has, so that file, I can open it. It would have every single AAS file being downloaded on my phone for all the apps I have been downloaded. So I just search for Woolworths because that's the app that I'm testing. And then as you can see here, it shows you the rules that have been downloaded. And then I would tell you the approval of yes or no. And then if it's denied, we'll say deny, and we'll give you the reason why. And then tell you when it's been downloaded, last checked, and when is the next check. That means the system would, next week, you can see a week from today, or 5 days, we will check again if that file needs to be downloaded. Like it checks the CDN if it's refreshed, and then we'll download it for you. And then demo. So as I said, the goal is I wanted to be able to decouple from the backend developers, and I wanted to be able to deploy instantly. So we have at Woolworths, we have a beta app that we use it as a mock server, like most the other companies do. So I added a section called the universal links, and that section would download the AAS file that I hosted at Firebase. And then all what I need to do is I want to test the new fields. Like if I want to test, I can get, for example, like that. And then I would say, I would delete everything. And then I would say like a new feature I have, I want to test that. And then I just hit deploy. And then when I'm hitting deploy, I'm just deploying to Firebase, which is one line command that called Firebase deploy only hosting. And then I'm sending that file back to Firebase, just loading. And then now it tells me that, well, your file is ready. So if I go back here, this is the old AAS file. And then if I refresh it, hopefully it works. Yeah, so now I have a new path being introduced, which is called a new path. And thank you so much for listening.
Do we have any questions?
Is there any way we can reschedule the next check instead of having?
I think, because as I said, it's like the tip of the iceberg, this topic. Like if I search on the internet, like Stack Overflow, I don't find much details around it. And the only thing that I try to find is we can check how the operating system is reporting these checks. Like right now I'm running iOS 16, it told me that in 5 days it will check again. So maybe if I run on iOS 15, it might be different. So it's all controlled by the operating system. So I'm not too sure if we have the ability to control it. But the only thing, as I mentioned again, that for developer purpose, you can bypass the CDN. So if you can go to your entitlements for the associated domain and just say the mode is developer for that app link. And then the system would not check with the CDN, would go directly to your website or your like my AES file that hosted on Firebase. Yeah, I hope that I answered your question.
I have, maybe this is a hack that I use the developer mode and sometimes I use Charles proxy to just intercept it to overwrite with another JSON file. So I don't have to deploy the JSON file to the actual server.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. So you wait for the SWCT process.
No, I
then,
just use Charles proxy.
Yeah.
To intercept that request and
Overwriting
overwrite
the data?
Yeah, to write it.
You can do a proxy man too.
Yeah.
So you just do a JavaScript injection.
Because the process uses an NS URL session to download that file, so it can be intercepted. Yeah. I haven't thought of this good one.
Are there any more questions? You can catch me in the break, but another round of applause, thanks.
Thank you.
We're going to take 5 minutes and set up for the next talk, so feel free to grab any more paper if there's any, grab a drink and have a chat. We'll be back in a few minutes. Right, thanks everybody. We're about to get started with the second part of the night. If you just take your seats, that'd be great. All right, so we're joined tonight by a couple of notorious indie developers from Vancouver, Canada. For those of you who've been attending CocoaHeads long enough, you would remember when Kai and Marlon were part of the Sydney community, but it's great to have them here tonight and to talk about a bit about what they've been up to recently. I'm going to pass off to TC to get started with a question.
Thanks, Zach. Hi, everyone. My name is TC. I think I know most of you, but I'm from Apple Developer Relations, and I love having conversations with developers, as you know. I think the last time I spoke here was when we brought in Procreate and Wildflowers, who are proudly this year's Australian Apple Design Award winners. So earlier this week, I was having a conversation with Kai and Marlon over WebEx, and no, actually over FaceTime, I should say. And we started talking about what they've been up to. I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but quite recently they released an app which new developers might find pretty handy, actually, called Orbit, which basically helps you track your time for invoicing when you do contract work and so forth. Hugely successful app. But this year they started doing something a little different, and very different actually from a business productivity app that's found on. But more than that, they learned a few lessons along the way, including how people found their app, responded to their app, and on the technology side, there's some stories to share about WeatherKit and Swift charts as well. So without further ado, can we please make Kai and Marlon welcome?
Hello.
Hi. Thank you so much.
Welcome back to Sydney.
Can everyone hear us okay?
Yeah. I'll turn on a bit.
Perfect. All right.
So do you want to start off by telling us a little bit about your Orbit app and how you pivoted to what you're working on now?
It's a big pivot. So if Orbit is still around. But
Orbit is still a product in our lineup.
Yeah, sorry for any confusion. I didn't mean it that way at all. But yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Sorry, what was your question? How we started with Orbit, right?
Yeah, a bit about Orbit and then Mercury.
Yeah. Yeah, so Orbit was our first sort of full-on SwiftUI project, which we thought would be a fun experiment because we wanted to get into SwiftUI and we also wanted to get into macOS development. So we figured that's a perfect combination. So we started with that in 2020. So like the earliest
2019, right?
It was the version of SwiftUI that came out in 2019.
Yeah.
So the first one, the first SwiftUI. And then we ended up building the app and releasing it in 2020. So it was really fun. But then we figured, so we released Orbit. Orbit is was a fun app to build. It's a time tracking and invoicing app. And the thing with Orbit is that it's very utility focused. And we wanted
But
to
it was also a really good use case of SwiftUI, we thought. Because before that, we've been iOS developers for, I don't know how many years, but many years. But we were always a little bit hesitant getting into Mac development, but we obviously...
It feels crazy in hindsight because like we always look for awesome Mac apps and we were always like missing certain apps on the Mac. So we're like, why don't we build it ourselves? So it's crazy that we didn't do it.
When SwiftUI came out or was announced, we thought this is something we definitely want to learn and pick up. And when you can use it for macOS development, we had no excuse to not build a Mac app anymore. So that's when we started the journey. So Orbit started off only on the Mac, and then we slowly brought it to more and more platforms. At first the Mac, then iPhone, then iPad, then the watch.
Not the TV yet.
Not the TV yet.
It might be coming up.
I don't know if there's a big market for productivity apps on tvOS. We'll
Maybe they just don't have enough productivity apps. Then it's
So there might be a huge market opportunity we're missing out on at the moment. At some point, maybe.
Yeah, but I think once we were sort of feeling like Orbit was in a comfortable state, we were looking for a new product, a new app to work on. Because we do always want to just work on fun things. So we were thinking about what the next project should be. And we want something that was very design focused, something that we could really focus on the UI. And yeah, then that's when we started thinking of building Mercury, which is a weather app. So it is a very different app, and that's sort of where the pivot happened.
It actually started, the idea, we planned to build a weather app already way before we even started with Orbit. Initially, I don't know if anyone in the room has heard of Pocket Weather. It's a weather app, an Australian weather app.
Yeah, it was an Australian weather app.
Yeah, that Shifty Jelly built. And at some point they had to, or they made the hard decision to shut it down because back then they used one-time payment for the app. And for weather data, you have to pay continuously for many, as many users as you have to pay for weather data. So when they shut it down, we talked to Russell for a while, and we actually considered briefly to maybe take it over and keep it alive. But we were just in the process of moving to Canada, and we thought it might not be the smartest idea to take over an Australian weather app when we're just about to leave the country.
Yeah, but then we sort of put that on hold, and then when the summer came around, we did know we wanted to build something. We had our suspicions that something like WeatherKit would come out just because of the Apple acquiring Dark Sky, which was a very popular sort of API provider. So I think we figured Apple is not just buying it because they want nice weather data for themselves. It's got to be something they want to share with people. So we were starting to think that if that comes out this year, that will be the perfect opportunity to like jump on and build our favorite weather app that won't have to be shut down, that we can continue using ourselves for a long time. So that's sort of how the pivot happened. But yeah.
Or the addition.
The addition.
Yeah. And then, like during the announcement, it was almost like that this year's WWDC was built for us to push us over the edge of actually building a weather app, because it was WeatherKit being announced and Swift Charts, and we wanted a weather app that is very chart-based and nice visualization of weather data. So when those things came together, we're like, all right, we have no excuses. So we started building.
So I remember we had a conversation not long after WWDC, and you were both kind of smirking that you had this idea of what you're going to build next, and then you made a comment about how a lot of the work is already done, and I thought you right. And of course, you were working on Mercury at the time. So when did you launch Mercury?
The day
iOS
of
16.
iOS 16, when iOS 16 came out.
Why did you choose to launch it on that day?
I mean, there are actually multiple answers to this. I think there's a little bit in the indie developer community. I think there's a little bit of pride of getting things ready on day one for I mean, not that it's not in larger companies too, but they usually have more hoops to jump through than we do. So we felt like it's always you have the idea of what you want to build. Let's call that 100%, and then you work towards your goal. And at some point, the releases come around, and you make it to about 85%. You're like, cool, 85 is.
I'm done. I just need my screenshots. We're good.
Yeah, but we made it to about 85% of what we thought we wanted to put into 1.0. And we're like, hey, this is actually, we used it a lot. We started getting some of our friends to use it, and they really liked it. It's like, okay, cool. I think we can actually release it at this point, because it's always hard, right? You don't really know when you have something that's shippable.
I think there's both that, and also you're working towards a deadline that's not set. You know that it's going to happen sometime in September, most likely, if you're looking at Apple's release schedules. But it's a bit like, could be 1st of September, and we wouldn't make that. But if it's the 14th of September, we're good. We can do it if we have some late nights. So that's sort of how we figured. Okay, once we knew when the September event would be, we figured that we would make it in time.
And also, honestly, like releasing things on day one almost feels like a celebration of all the work that went into the summer, right? Because I think always for a lot of Apple engineers, it's a very long stretch, and then WWDC is the announcement, and then there's still a lot of work to do. And we kind of start to get also in the busy period once the things are being announced. And then it's kind of fun. I feel like it's always almost a celebration of a bunch of Apple folks being able to talk about what they shipped, a lot of indie developers and other companies that shipped things on day one, being able to show all the clever ideas that they had over the summer. Because sometimes you see very, I mean, even with Mercury, it's pretty obvious of a use case. Apple announced charts and WeatherKit, and we make a chart-based weather app. I mean, you don't have to go through too many hoops to come to that idea. But sometimes, I don't know if you've seen Apollo, the Reddit client, and what Christian did with using the nudge to have small pixel animals running around. That was such a good idea. And it's always fun, like that period once iOS 16 or any iOS version is being released, and you see all those people having all those clever ideas. I think that is just such a fun period, and it's so. I wouldn't want to miss that kind of wave of fun and excitement.
Years when we have not released something on day one, you sort of feel like you're missing out. Like we also wanted to work on something, so I do think it's really fun to be part of that.
I think that's a great answer, by the way, and we love that. Right? It is indeed a celebration. So I know you guys learned a few interesting lessons with WeatherKit. I know that you have family in Europe as well, and very important friends in Australia. What did you do differently with WeatherKit for those people in different areas of the world?
So I think, I'm sorry, you can say the question. I didn't hear like the final part.
So what I'm really referring to is how you are blending the information.
That's a great question, because turns out weather is very different everywhere, and people expect different things. People have different, like some people really value seeing when it's gonna rain, but if you live in a certain part of the world, that's not happening as often. Although we noticed that Sydney has a lot of rain lately, so that's been but I do think one thing we noticed was that we really tried to both when we were traveling during the summer, as well as with our friends and family in all different countries, we try to get as accurate reports from them as possible. So we would often send Zach a text message when he was in Sydney, like, hey Zach, is it raining right now? Because we saw that it was raining, but we needed someone to confirm that
Hey,
for us.
home, can you look outside for me?
Yeah, because what we're doing, yeah, because what we really liked with Dark Sky is in North America, you get, and the UK and Ireland, you get super accurate minute by minute rain forecasts, right? I don't know if you've seen it in Australia. There are some other apps in Australia that do that, but Dark Sky didn't. So you would literally see a chart and saying in 4 minutes it will start raining, and in 90% of the cases, in 4 minutes it will start raining. And Dark Sky and now WeatherKit, they have a bunch of regions they support for that feature. For example, North America, or mostly the US, and places in Canada and I believe Mexico that are close enough to the border that whatever the weather modeling is kind of capturing. Like Vancouver,
like Vancouver is so close to Seattle, so we may as well also get 1 minute a minute.
But if you go up to Yukon, so another few hundred kilometers north of here, you wouldn't get that feature. And Europe is only getting it in, I mean, Europe. Different topic, but the UK and Ireland also get it. But for example, Germany, I'm German, so Germany doesn't get that feature. So what we're doing is we're actually blending different data sources now to try to maintain the same feature set in our app. So if my mother is a very avid Mercury user now, because she's never experienced minute-to-minute rain forecasts before, and because a lot of local European apps didn't support that. So when I showed it to her in a prototype state first, she was so excited. It was literally it was just one.
Yeah, sorry, you go.
Yeah, it was this most simple app you would ever see. It was just one rectangle, and it just had like 4 like bars in a horizontal thing, and it would show it will you had to count the lines to figure out how many minutes until it would rain. And she loved that app so much, she initially thought that's what we're building and that's what we're gonna release. So she just used that, and I kept an iOS 15 version around because she obviously didn't update to the betas and couldn't use Swift charts. So she, for the entire period over the summer when I talked to her a lot about us building the weather app, she always looked at the test flight build that she had, which was still the old one, just a horizontal line thing that I just put together really quickly just for a data evaluation, essentially. And she was already stunned with that. She would have been happy if we had released that. And then obviously now, once iOS 16 came out, she updated, she's like, oh, that's why you put so much work into it. Now I see it.
You need to spend all summer on these records.
Yeah, but I think that is a cool thing, or I think it's something nice in Mercury, that we're trying to blend different weather sources to have a consistent set of features across the world. And we're now having a check. WeatherKit has a property that they're exposing, saying if they're supporting the minute-by-minute forecast. So if they do, then we're using WeatherKit. If it's not supported, then we're pulling in different local weather sources to fill in those gaps. And as soon as, let's say, WeatherKit tomorrow or next year supports part of Europe, it would automatically switch to that one, which is also nice because that way we don't have to keep track of all the different locations at all times.
Yeah, this is the second time I've heard you explain that story, and it still stands up in my mind how important it is to solve real-world problems, but more than that, to solve real-world problems for your mom, right? And the mom has a testing regime. But I know there's another story too, where your mom then took on a slightly unexpected role within your family concerning your sister. Can you share that with us?
Yeah. First of all, this was actually the first time my mother updated to a new iOS version.
On day one.
On day one. She was so excited to finally update her iPhone to iOS 16. And then she installed the app and it's like, oh, this is so much cooler than the stupid rectangle one. And she was so excited that because we're now in Vancouver, Canada, and in Europe, so our time zones didn't quite line up. So when we went to bed, the next morning I got some messages from my mother, and it turns out my mother spent our entire night talking to my sister on FaceTime.
And some background, Kai's sister is not very technical.
Yeah.
I think you get all of the technical skills in your family. Yeah, she did not.
Yeah, my sister's an author, and she would still write her books with a typewriter if her publisher would allow for that. So my sister on the very, very end of the spectrum of how much you can be into tech. My mother kind of in the middle. So it turns out my mother spent the entire night, her day, on FaceTime with my sister, trying to help her update her phone to iOS 16 so she could also install our new weather app. That was stunning.
Wow.
What's that?
I've never heard that story before. Like it, and I'm glad you guys got to hear it firsthand, because I was just rolling on the floor laughing, honestly.
I would have loved, in hindsight, I would have loved to have heard that call, because I still cannot really visualize what I call, because my mother is not super technical and my sister is super not technical. I would have loved to see. I also know, because I think iOS 15.7 was released the same day as iOS 16. So my mother very proudly, after when I got back up, told me about how she helped my sister to first update to 15.7 because you needed to get to 16. And I didn't want to break it to her that they could have updated directly to 16.
We do look for support staff all around the world all of the time.
I'll let her know.
I'd love to read you a quote now. You may recognize it, but it's for the benefit of those in this room as well. So I won't start from the beginning, but I'll start halfway through. It says, or he says, "Great presentation, and I'm particularly digging the depth of settings. No need to, dig around trying to choose from a dozen themes or layouts. Mercury is opinionated. Its creators, Kai and Marlin, have decided how it should look, and they've knocked it out of the park." Do you remember who wrote that on his website?
I feel like I heard that one.
Yeah.
We were very excited to see John Gruber's article, which you're reading from, and people who might not know, John Gruber writes this blog, which is we've been reading for such a long time. You often wear a During Fireball shirt, which is his blog. Probably 3 times a week you're wearing one of those t-shirts. So we were super excited to be able to see that he wrote an article about our app. And we even got a baseball reference, and if people have followed him, they know that he's very into sports. I think that's a high praise from him.
Getting knocked it out of the park was extra special.
So here's the bit that gets me, right? People pay John to mention the apps on his Daring Fireball website. But here John makes this comment. He says, "My one and only complaint is that they also offer a lifetime unlock for premium. I want great apps like Mercury to thrive for a decade or longer." And then he explains that he would rather subscribe yearly, but for it to go on much more than what you were asking for as a lifetime subscription. So here, John is, not only was he not paid by you, he's offering you a business plan.
Yeah, and of course, that was our best lifetime sales day we've ever had.
Yeah, sorry, I interrupted you. Say that again. So what happened after that comment?
Yeah, after John told people to not buy lifetime, that was, of course, the best lifetime sales day we've ever had for any app we've ever built. Yeah, in general, that was a fun, for people who might not be super familiar with the geography of Vancouver and North Vancouver. We were just about to meet some other indie developers.
You describe this as fun?
Yeah, we were on our way to meet some other indie developers who live in North Vancouver, which is Vancouver is the side we're living on, and then there's a ferry that connects you to the north side. And just as we boarded the ferry, I got a text message, or I got a notification on my watch, John Gruber is following you. Then Malin got one. We're like, oh, something's happening. And we immediately went to Daring Fireball and we're like, did he write about something? And we saw our app being on the very top of the post. And we immediately went into excitement, followed, I would say, about 5 seconds of excitement, and then into, oh no, what's our API quota? And
I like writing an app, like writing Orbit before and writing all of the backend infrastructure. First, when we released Mercury, I thought, okay, this is going to be nice. We don't have a backend we have to worry about. Everything is like, it's on other people's systems. So it's not, we don't have to stress about that. But I wish I had my own backend when running web service at that point.
Yeah,
it was very stressful not being able to have the same control. But then in the end, things worked out really well.
We also had so many downloads in such a short time, which is a great problem to have. This is not actually a horror story. This was an amazing day. But it was so many API uses in such a short time that we got the email, you're 50% through your quota, you're 75% through your quota, you're 90% through your quota, and we now cut you off because you're through the quota within 1 minute. So we got all of those emails essentially in one batch. We're like, oh no.
Yeah.
So we immediately tried to upgrade all of our plans, which was really fun and a good problem to have, but nevertheless very stressful to do on a ferry ride.
That's a great story. Unexpected success. Who would have guessed? So questions from the floor for Carl or Malin.
When's it getting bomb data?
Did you say
You
bomb?
mean, what is it
different
bureau. This is also a favorite one of ours, because Malin and I, we lived in Australia for many years. I mean, not that many, 5 years or so,
Yeah, like
before moving to Canada. 6 years even? I'm terrible with time. Malin is always telling me that I'm lying to people because I'm usually off by around 2 years of any time frame I'm giving. So sometimes we got customer support messages. My favorite one was one person from Australia saying, typical American developers not thinking of anywhere outside of America and not supporting bomb data in Australia. It was like, oh man, first of all, Vancouver's not in America. And second, we really tried, but if anyone's tried to work with bomb, probably know that it's not super trivial to get their data. So we do consider potentially using Willy Weather's API to add to Mercury in the future. And
Willy Weather is using bomb data behind the scenes. Yeah.
So maybe in the future. And also, Zach, I know you're on test flight where we already do that. So
I was asking
good question.
Man of the people.
All right, can we have another question, not from Zach?
I'll go.
Yeah.
Well, I'm building a couple, well, mainly one indie app myself. And so I'm really interested in, it's going to be a long question, so a long answer. So what's your story in deciding to go indie and how you sort of turn that into a business? And also just what's your best advice for building something, marketing it, getting it out there, getting people to use it, while, all that while knowing that you might be building something that no one really wants. Like, what keeps you going?
Great questions.
So I think there are 2 parts. There's the route we took and the route we would tell people to take.
Yeah.
No, you can go.
I have a better question for the second part of the question. Better answer for the second part of the question. So you go with the first.
Okay, so Malin has a good advice, and I talk about our story. So for us, there were multiple factors that are probably and hopefully not easily replicatable. Mostly because we started building Orbit when the pandemic started around that time, and we were in a situation where we're not. We also run an agency, and we used to meet a lot of people in person and did work with that.
And
So obviously
we'll
then
put this specifically an app for you to be able to track time for client work that you're doing and then invoice your clients for that time as well.
Yeah. So we initially for a lot of the client work that all kind of slowed down when the pandemic started, and we thought, all right, who knows how long this is going to take, and rather than being too negative about it, we thought, all right, cool, let's use it as an opportunity to just, we're going to stay indoors anyways, we're not going anywhere. We took the stay at home and social distancing very seriously. So we thought this is a great opportunity for us to build what we wanted to exist in the time tracking invoicing type of area. So that's what we did. So we just stayed home and worked on this and kind of distracted us from everything that's going on in the world by just putting so much effort and time into building that. And it was both therapeutic to have something, because it was hard, right? All of a sudden, usually, you go out a lot and you do things and you meet friends and you all your normal things. And all of a sudden, you watch some movies and you're already making it into your C list of movies you wanted to watch. And you're like, this is starting to get a little bit exhausting. So having a product that was, I would say, pretty ambitious. There was a lot we could do, and it felt like it had easily a few years of scope of things we could do. Was a nice distraction of everything else, and it also felt productive, because we felt during the early days of the pandemic, it was kind of hard to feel like you're doing something, because the entire state of the world, there's not much we felt we could do apart from staying at home. But staying at home is about the most passive thing you can do. So it was just a nice way for us to feel like, first of all, it scratching an itch that we had. It felt satisfying to feel productive. And also it was a good way to start the indie journey.
Yeah.
But of course.
But I think there were also a lot of uncertainty, and I think that's where you're saying that this is hopefully not the way that anyone else will start. I think for us, building an app within that space was very, it was rewarding for us, because we knew it was an app we wanted to build directly. And in general, when I build apps, I want to build an app that I'm going to use, and I think that's already going to help you when deciding to go indie and knowing how to market it and sort of knowing what you want to build. But one thing we felt was that there was uncertainty on how many people will be able to use this app, considering the state of the world, because it was meant for many people who decide to start their own businesses and decide to leave, like not work full time for a company, have a lot of different clients. So we had noticed that there were a lot more reservation from companies to start building new apps and to start taking on contractors at that time as well. So we were a little bit worried that there wouldn't be that many people who felt comfortable starting businesses and starting to use time tracking for that. So I think that was sort of what contributed to that sort of stress factor in the beginning. But then we have noticed that there were people who wanted to use it. Once we were featured on the App Store, that did a lot for Mercury, and we felt like the main thing there was that we just needed to get it in front of the right people.
There were multiple things to that. For example, we completely misjudged who our audience would be for Orbit initially. We thought it would be designers and developers, kind of like ourselves, and we thought that's the audience we're trying to get to find. And we experimented a lot with different ads, and it turns out, I mean, it's kind of obvious in hindsight, but it took us way too long to figure it out. Lawyers really like tracking their time. And
3 minutes.
Yeah, and the way we build it is very much we essentially collect timestamps and we add all the time up, because that way you get extremely accurate kind of for all the charting. We did pre-Swift charts. Those were handcrafted charts. We built a lot of charts in the app where you could see exactly what time a day you spent working, and when you work on other things, and when you took breaks and those kind of things. And turns out lawyers really like that.
So even if there were fewer sort of independent contractors, there were a lot of people in other spaces that really needed an app.
Yeah. And it turns out law software is also, if you look at like nice software, law software is usually not an area you would look for inspiration of your next creative, beautifully designed software. So we also just happened to, by dumb luck, stumble into that industry that some people founded in that space. And then now we're seeing the biggest increase in downloads and like people sending us messages that they like what we're doing or having feature requests when there are law conferences going on, which is not what we expected, but you know, it made a lot of sense in hindsight. And now we're trying to, we made a few small changes to some features. Not that we want to make it a law focused piece of software, but something that group of people would get a lot of value. Like, for example, rounding up your time when you're invoicing was a very highly requested feature in our time tracking app. Because, if you've ever dealt with lawyers, they want to do that. So that was something, and we couldn't believe it. We released that feature and we didn't tell anyone. Like it wasn't something we thought. we talk on Twitter and we're hoping that John writes about our invoice time up rounding, right? That didn't seem like something we felt like we could market really. And it was within 24 hours we got emails, like 10, 20, 30 emails from lawyers thanking us to release, and it was a minor update. We didn't even put a big in a release notes. We were super naive about what we thought was important. We just wanted the customer support requests to stop, and that's why we added it. And it turned out that was the one missing piece for it to kind of organically grow. Which, you know, in hindsight, you can totally point at that point, and it was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But and we could claim credit of like, look how smart we are in our feature roadmap, but we just happened to be lucky there, and that worked out pretty well. And I think it's similar with Mercury. We built Mercury.
It's very different. Like what I think with Mercury was that we specifically picked up this app because it was something that could be used by a broader audience. And I think that would just be something where like everyone looks at the weather, but many people have different favorite ways of interpreting it or favorite ways of getting it presented. So I do think we felt like there was, even if there's an app store category for weather, it feels like a pretty crowded space. But we did feel like if we can just have something that we are happy using, and that's something that's just like really pleasant to look at, that we knew that we would like to use ourselves, we felt like that could be a market there, and there could be people who wanted that the same way as us. But we obviously didn't expect John to write about it, and that made a big difference. But we were pretty happy with the initial release as well, to see how many people who were organically downloading it.
Yeah, if we're now looking at our unit charts though, when we released it, we wrote about it on Twitter and people really liked it, which was great. And we thought, hey, this was such a successful launch, but you can now not even see the bar anymore on your App Store Connect charts because John's post just completely blew it out, which is really cool. Like that was we were happy before that, and then that just made a big change, and that also had some knock-on effects where we had like podcasters from all over North America and Europe reaching out and telling us that they're using the app, and some podcasts talked about it, and we had blog posts where people talked about it. So those kind of things, again, it's hard to say, you know, just make John like your app.
Back to the original question, like actually giving you a good answer here. I feel like we're not doing that. I do think what I learned is that every app is very different in terms of like, if you want to do your own marketing and you don't get like, you can't rely on getting press coverage. And what we notice is that there's just a lot of trial and a lot of different options that work on the different apps. So for example, with Orbit, we have had a sort of organic growth through like word of mouth at those conferences. But another thing that we noticed was that we started, because it's a more expensive app. We charge like $10 a month for the time tracking and invoicing app. Weather app is just $2 a month, so it's very different. But we felt like with the time tracking and invoicing app, we could actually pay for search ads on the App Store, because we had a little bit more of a buffer there if people do end up subscribing. And we try to be like very clever, try to add really good keywords and really try to optimize that. But then one thing we noticed was that the main thing we actually paid for, one thing that we lost a lot of money on was people who searched for free time tracking app. So those were the ones that actually ended up tapping the ad and looking at it. And then we realized that since our ad, like since you do require to subscribe to subscribe once you install the app, someone who searches for free specifically is not going to be a paying customer. So
Or very unlikely.
Yeah, pretty unlikely. So that's when we noticed that we could actually add it as like a negative keyword. So we don't want anyone who searches with a search term with free in it to see our ad. So there are all those like different things that you just see based on just experimenting with it.
And also, honestly, I think being able to release interesting new features alongside a new phone release, a new watch release, a new iPad release, a new iOS release, or any of the operating systems using interesting things. I think a lot of indie developers that we know of that are now full-time indie developers, they either launch their indie career around an Apple release or whatever platform they're using. But in our context, Apple is probably very likely, because it is a perfect opportunity to do all of those things, right? It's a great opportunity to play with new technology that you probably get to before bigger companies get to. It's a good time for tries, let's say, 9 to 5 Mac rumors, all the kind of like very common Apple price where people would look for interesting new apps around launch. People that write for those magazines or those publications, those blogs, they're actively looking. They're often writing on Twitter, hey, please send me a message if you're using like the dynamic island, if you're supporting live activities, if you're supporting lock screen widgets, right?
Yeah.
And we always had a hesitation. Yeah, we always had a hesitation of reaching out to people and trying to sell our thing. That always felt kind of uncomfortable. But when you see people actively looking, you're like, hey, we're actually kind of helping. And
you feel a lot less pushy. You feel like if you're specifically asking for it, it feels like a natural time. Whereas if we would release an app in May, that would probably not be as natural of a time to send those messages.
Yeah, and then also appstore.com/promote is a great place to, if you're using new technology or have a very pretty app, to tell Apple about what you're working on, because the App Store editorial team, they're a bunch of very friendly people that look for interesting apps to promote every day now, right? So it's also a good place to talk about the interesting things you're doing. And obviously that is also around the releases. It's a good time for those kind of things.
I think Kai and Marlon forgot 2 other parts of the success, because I have to point it out now. One is that they finished their projects, right? And secondly, which they might not immediately admit to, is that they were actually pretty good. So if you keep those 2 kind of points in mind as well, finish it so that you can ship it, right? And yeah, do your best work. You know when that moment comes, as it did for Kai and Marlon, where you suddenly realize your day job, as you used to call it, is not the thing that you're going 9 to 5 doing. It's actually the app that you've been working on in your spare time, and that is an amazing point in your journey. Do we have any other questions?
I've got one.
Oh no, watch out, guys.
Have you looked at the Weather Underground API?
Briefly, why are you asking?
Yeah, well, I was born in England and I have a fascination with weather. So I've got Weather Station. And it's hooked into Weather Underground, but it's just horrendous. The whole view of it, everything else. But if you look in Sydney, there's just weather stations everywhere, all going to this Weather Underground API, which is just hell if you look at it. But if somebody smart took that data and presented it in a lovely way, it would make me very happy.
Because they didn't have the skills to do that themselves.
One interesting thing with Weather Underground in particular, and some other ones, is IBM went on a little bit of a purchase spree recently of acquiring a bunch of weather-related API companies, and Weather Underground is one of those. So you can, as far as I know, unless you have a weather station yourself, you can no longer get Weather Underground API access, you now have to buy it from IBM or the weather company, which is an IBM subsidiary that's selling access to weather data. And as you can imagine, working with IBM is about as painful as you can. if you imagine working with IBM, it's about 2 steps harder than that. So we actually reached out to them about the weather channel, or the weather company now, the weather company's API, which includes the Weather Underground data. And they wanted to schedule a call. And whenever you see pricing as contact us, it's probably going to be too expensive. So there are definitely quite a lot of benefits of Apple's weather kit. Go into your developer profile and click 2 buttons, and you have weather data access. So we will take that call, but I think there's a good chance that we come out of that call and we think that we need about 5 more John Gruber articles before we can afford that.
That may just happen. So before I close out, I have one confession to make, Kyle and Martin. That one bad customer review that you received about how Sydney weather is rubbish and attributed it to your app, that was me. So if you can fix that, friends for life. Anyway, a big thank you to Kai Marlin all the way from Vancouver, which is 1 a.m.
Almost 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again.
Yeah. Thank you so much, TC, and thank you so much for everyone for listening. We can.
Now we can hear you again. Yeah, thank you so much. That was super fun. We also, in case anyone we wanted to give away 3 coupon codes if we're allowed to. Woohoo! I don't know. This is probably doesn't need to be a Hunger Games situation, but
I think it will turn into.
So we'll just have QR codes that directly lead to Apple's redeem of promo codes. We figured we make it super easy. So, but there's 3. So
this is the first one. So whoever scans it first gets that one. It's a very sophisticated allotment here. So the next one. If no one scans this, Zach, because we can't see anyone, don't tell us. We'll just make us feel bad.
No, people have their phones out. I can at least 2.
And we got a last one.
One more.
I paid for it myself.
Yeah. Everyone else has bought it, I'm told.
That's right, yeah.
And of course, as always, if anyone has any feedback, apart from using BOM data or the Bureau's data, let me know. We're very much.
Yes, at the moment you can contact us on Twitter. We'll see how long that lasts for. But we
Cool.
That's great.
All right. Thank you, Kai. I'll have a round of applause.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to TC for organizing that as well. I think it's really cool to sort of showcase and highlight work of indie developers. We don't have a lot of it at Sydney CocoaHeads. I think you find a lot of people are sort of talking about what they do at their day jobs, but it's also really cool to sort of see what people do on the side as well. So thanks for sharing, Kai and Martin. All right, so thanks everyone for attending tonight. Feel free to stick around for a few more minutes, have a chat if you like. But just a quick reminder about next month. So we're back on the 3rd Thursday, and it'll be our Christmas party. So there'll be no formal talks. It'll be a very informal night actually, and there'll just be a quiz, opportunity to chat, catch up with people, and have a bit of fun. So we hope to see you there. If we don't see you next month, have a good Christmas and holiday break, and we'll catch you in February with talks next year.
And next month there will be prizes.
Will be
So
prizes.
that should get you here.
Food and prizes. What more could you ask for? That's it. Cool. All right. Thanks everyone. Get home safe. I'll see you next month.